Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the show. This is Lo. How are you? Thank you for being a part of Spaces, Places, and Thoughts series. Today we're chatting with the author, Sly Goodridge. Now, if you know anything about Sly Goodridge, he has been around for a while. He is an accomplished author, and you can find his latest book on Amazon.com. We are excited about having him with us, and we're excited about the idea about his thoughts. So the purpose for the series of Places, Spaces, and Thoughts is for us to talk about some of the interesting things that people have done, will do, and shall do. It's more of the cerebral side of conversation, the intellectual side of conversation, where we're speaking to writers and all kind of good people like that. And we're excited to have Sly on our show. Sly, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you for your patience. I know it's been strenuous for you. We've been trying to get you on the show for a while, but we're excited to have you. Thank you so very much, Sly. Thank you.
It is my pleasure. And I would like to say thank God for giving me the opportunity to be the guardian over this wonderful novel. And thank you for having me on the show as well.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of the novel, give us a little history about how you started writing, first of all. Not alone writing a novel. And this isn't even your first. This is what, your third novel?
Actually, it's my fourth. The very first novel that I wrote, I have it on the shelf right now. I have not published that yet. Mm-hmm. And I have quite a few others as well that's in the make. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, about how I got into writing, I will give the credit to my grandfather, Sylvester Young. He passed away before I was born, and I was told that by my mother that he wrote letters for people who could not afford an attorney, legal type letters. Mm-hmm. And when I was about maybe 10, 11, 12, I found a notebook that he had, and he had lyrics written in it. So I took the lyrics and I would rewrite them, and in my own words and so on. And so that kind of, started me finding an interest in writing. When I was 18 years old, I was in the Army, and I wrote short stories and poetry. And I also wrote about an experience that I had. It's more in the line of a soldier's story. It's that kind of situation that happened. So I wrote about that. In 1976, I had the opportunity of meeting and performing on a television show of theirs. Famous actor Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee. And I wrote some of my original stuff. And actually, my very first limousine ride was with Author Davis and Ruby Dee. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I later on went on and wrote a lot of different projects and so on. I also did some writing for the Navy newspaper because I was I did two branches of the military. I did the Army and the Navy. And while stationed at a squadron in Virginia, I wrote sports commentary, for a soccer team that played, at one of the bases there, and posted it in the newspaper. I also was asked by my squadron because I also did some freelance photography. It had nothing to do with writing, but that was also posted in the newspaper.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it took quite a long time of, working and kind of honing, the writing and loving it, reading a lot. I was an avid reader, loved to read, always had a library wherever I was. So, reading and writing kind of came hand in hand with me, Yeah. And writing this novel made me in Paris I actually came up with the name about a year ago. And it took me about a year before I finally decided what the novel was going to be based on, because initially I was thinking, okay, Paris, France, James Bond driving through Paris, and, that kind of a thing. But then I thought, romance. Paris is romance. So let me write about romance, And I actually picked a topic that most people would probably ask, well, you're a man. What do you know about women? I mean, well, you're writing about women and their feelings and things like that. But I kind of put that in the context of an actor. When an actor is studying for a role, he has to delve into the character that he's acting, as, whether it's an animated movie, which is happening a lot now. There's a lot of actors who are doing animated movies, so they have to delve into that character, like a little puppy or a little, a cat or whatever the character is that they're acting as. And so that's the same with writing. For me, when I write in the vein of the reader. What will the reader want to hear? How would the reader perceive this? A woman is reading about a woman character. How would that, how do I get that across? So I have to research and research and research, to find, that character, and also to delve into what that character will do as a female. Though also I have male characters, so as a man, of course, I make that hand and foot. One of the things that kind of, I learned a lot writing this novel, a lot, because I had tons and tons of research to do. I learned that, and I don't know if a lot of women know that, I learned why a woman wear a certain color dress when she's going out, what the color means, and that's in the novel, as well as some things that I remember as a little kid. My mother had perfume bottles, and my sisters, when my sisters and I cleaned on a Saturday, and we had to clean my mom and dad's room, so they would mess with my mom's perfume, and I saw these on the perfume bottles. They had these writing. I didn't know what it meant. Fiordalise, things like that, in French. So I kind of figured, well, okay, it's French. But when I did the research on these things, I found out that Fiordalise was all what came from the King Louis of France, and the seventh, King Louis VII. And what he did, he adopted the iris, which is in the novel. There's lots of mentions of the iris, and it has a critical part in the novel itself. He loved the flower, so he made it the national flower of France. Wow. And they used to call it Fleur de Lis. But then as time went by, it became Fleur de Lis. So when you see that on a perfume bottle, that's where it came from. Yeah.
Wow.
So tons of research. I'm sorry.
I can imagine, but one of the things that I found interesting when reading the book is how you were able to dive into that female character, because it was the protagonist, you were speaking from a first person's voice. And you did say you did the research behind it, but how did you really engage getting into, besides the research, you personally, how did you engage into that feminine voice? Was there a special way you had to act within that? And I wanted to let you know, too, this conversation is so fascinating that we are going to go off and come right back on because that question, hold on to that question, part 2 coming up right after this, guys. He's coming right back on, and we're going to answer that question. What's the name of the book? Tell everybody the name of the book. Sly, what's the name of the book?
Meet Me in Paris. Meet Me in Paris. And that's a novel that every woman should read.
I was getting ready to say that. You've got to read it. It is so amazing. The other wonderful thing about it is it's a period book, too. So we want to really remind you about that. Sly, hold on. I'm going to bring you right back in. We're going to continue this conversation, okay? Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
This is part 1. Part 2 is coming up, guys. Take care.
Blog Talk Radio.
Oh, yes. Good afternoon again. The novel. And one of the questions that you asked was about the historical events that occurred during that period of time. Emma, the main character, began to find out about while she was reading the diaries and writing a memoir. So she found out that her great-grandfather was a Buffalo soldier, and he met her mom, and I don't want to give away too much of the book, but he met her mom during that period of time, during that war. And it's strange because of so many things that occurred during the writing of the novel that I myself discovered, and that is the Buffalo Soldiers, the original Buffalo Soldiers, prior to World War I, they actually built Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where I was stationed when I was in the Army. So as I continued working on the novel, there were so many different things that occurred. Another important thing that happened to me as well was with the Tuskegee Airmen, which her grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman during World War II. And in, I believe it was 2010, in Atlanta, I was working on an event with the Tuskegee Airmen, and when they found out that I was part of the Naval Air Command, I was in a squadron and so on, they embraced me, and while they were taking publicity pictures, they pulled me in, and there was about 12 of them at the time. And so, yeah, they put me in the middle, and we took pictures together. So that was a meaningful connection that I had, in those areas of the book. Another thing that was interesting to me was Emma and her connection with Christina, which is her cousin that she did not know about. She only found out about Christina when she arrived in Paris. And as they began to get to know each other, every scene in the novel was actually a comedic scene. They had so much fun together, getting to know each other as women and as cousins. And although Emma was suffering from, her failed relationship that she left behind, although she was still a part of it, it was still a part of her life, Christina was able to help her maneuver herself through it and some of the pain that she was experiencing. Meet Me in Paris is such an amazing novel. And I always say that God wrote the novel, and I was just the typist. I was the one that was on the computer putting the words together because it was such an effective and mysterious in a way, because some of the things that when I started thinking about these things and did research on it, it just happened to flow so smoothly. And so it was an amazing experience writing the novel. And you got to excuse me. My granddaughter is here, and my daughter, her mother, is presently trying to survive COVID at the time. So I took her with me, and she's been with me for about a week and a half. So excuse that. But yeah. So getting back to the novel and all of the great things that happened within, it was a novel that was supposed to happen. Let me just, I got a little distracted, but yeah. So anyway, it's a outstanding novel. I think women who read the novel, and men as well, because it's filled of all these different great historical moments, and I think women will love it because, they would learn so much about, things that they do ordinarily, not knowing there's a historical significance to it. So I tell you, it was a great novel to write, and I'm very proud of the work that was done to it. And basically, I'm looking forward to this becoming a movie because I believe it has that strong love, romance, and history behind it that would make for good watching, as well as it's made for good reading. So hopefully, Meet Me in Paris will launch and in the movie theaters, and we'll have good viewing. So we're working towards that. We need the support of everyone who's listening and everyone who's reading as well. So yes, go out and buy the novel, and hopefully, we'll get to the point of where we need to go with all this. This distraction kind of threw me off a little bit, but again, I say Meet Me in Paris was a novel made in heaven, and all of the different connections between the present and the past came together to make this a very powerful presentation. When Emma, when she spoke with Christina concerning the young man in Paris who was interested in her, he is Philippe. He's a French movie filmmaker. And she explained about the kind of person he was. I thought that was very effective, and it brought to the forefront some of the things that we're dealing with. Now, the movie was actually, the novel was written between November of last year and April of this year. So I spent 5 months researching and writing the novel. And that was during the height of COVID. So there is mention of COVID in it, and also what is mentioned is the effects of COVID, what it did to relationships, to marriages, and to boyfriend and girlfriend, romance, and things like that. So, so it deals with the reality of what we are experiencing right now. What I noticed during COVID, a lot of marriages ended. A lot of relationships ended. So we've had to deal with that aspect of the novel. So looking forward to having everyone purchase the novel and to move on with it. A matter of fact, I'm living through what I was just talking about right now, the COVID situation. My daughter, like I say, she is in bed in her house, and I had to run in, play grandpa, and take my granddaughter, 2.5-year-old, with.
Blog Talk Radio.